Hello, everyone, and welcome to the virtual California Speedway. It's Monday night on P1, and you know what that means. It's time for Murph. It's time for Collins, and it's the Indy Open Top Split. And Jacob, it's from a track that no longer exists. This is all an Amazon warehouse now, but back in its time, this was one of the premier speedways in the United States. One of only 7 over 2 miles in length or more, and one of 2 defunct super speedways in the Los Angeles area. And Jacob, you've been talking to some of the drivers before this one. What do you think's in store for us here tonight at California?
Well, as you can kind of see, it's dark and cloudy. That means the track's going to be nice and cold for us, which means that we might have a struggle for cars to get away from each other here tonight, which will cause spells of chaos surely throughout the running of this race.
You know, most certainly does. Right now for qualifying, the track is 75 degrees in the air, 102 on the track. Very low humidity, as you would expect from the California desert. Right now, we've got qualifying underway. Seb Alexander is the only car to have set time. Jesper Orman, Casey Povolonis, Chad Simpson, David Hinger, Olivier Simonu, and Leo Salvador are also on the course. Leo Salvador has gone to the top of the charts. This is Jacob Collins, the home of the world closed course speed record. Gilles de Ferran, 241 miles an hour in qualifying here in the old unlimited kart days.
I'd imagine there's a reason that's a closed course record and not a spectator event. You know, I think a lot of IndyCar fans will harken back to Ryan Briscoe's crash here in, I believe, 2015, where he basically turned into a lawn dart in the infield grass down the front stretch.
You know, that will happen. Speaking of lawn darts, one of the men that turned me into a lawn dart, Caleb Brashear, is here. And we were talking about this earlier, Jacob. We've got a stacked field, but it's a very close together field. Adam Blocker, number 1, 7,028 iRating. The low man on the totem pole, number 17, Cody Grommel, 3447. But most of the drivers here are in that 4,000 to 6,000 range. It's a very, very tight field from really number 3 to number 13. And so we're looking at some pretty close action. You mentioned the pack racing. All the names are here. Adam Blocker, Jason Brophy, Seb Alexander is here, along with defending champion Rashad Craig. You've got the Luke Mansky team of Logan Edwards, along with Caleb Brashear. And I hear that Caleb Brashear has the paperweight hooked up, Collins.
Well, it sounds like he's using it for some extra buttons. You know, we're getting that hybrid soon, so he's got to get some more inputs getting prepared for that thing to come around on us. For
the inside joke, and to let everybody else in on it, Caleb Brashear won a very, very nice Gomez Sim Industries steering wheel for winning the Open Wheel Invitational at the Sim Gaming Expo. He doesn't have a base to use it, so I think we were able to take up a collection for him, and I think he's got the conversion to put it on his wheelbase, and so he's got it hooked up. But you're saying it's just serving as a button box at the moment?
Yeah, he's lovingly referring to it as his nightlight right now. So he's got it hooked up, at least plugged in, doing something, looking pretty. But we'll see how much use he's actually getting out of it.
Very good. Qualifications have ended here at California, and that means that we're going to have a grid. Only 8 of the 18 drivers took time, Jacob, and that is pretty interesting in and of itself.
It's actually not super uncommon here on the big tracks. You know, we kind of talk about the draft being a big factor here. A lot of guys will want to try to be towards the midpoint of the field to maybe do a bit more fuel saving, running lighter on the throttle pedal, maybe running in a map 3, a map 4, trying to save as much gas as they can to stretch that opening run and run short on the closing stint to run it full beans to the end.
There you go. The starting lineup tonight is going to be Marco Brazil on the pole in the familiar number 6. Casey Povolonis, the cheese man, he'll go from the outside of row 1. Chad Simpson, Anna Klimek, they'll start row 2. David Hinger, Leo Salvador from row 3. Jesper Orman, Olivier Simonu, row 4. Adam Blocker begins the group that did not take time. He and teammate Jason Brophy They're going to start 9th and 10th. In 11th, it'll be Seb Alexander, 12th. Ty Keela, Rashad Craig, 13th. Those are all corporate teammates there. Logan Edwards, Caleb Brashear. The Luke Mansky boys will start 14th and 15th. And then it'll be Ella Spice, Robin Glakis, and Cody Grommel to round out this field. And it is a very, very tight field in terms of iRating. It's going to be pretty tight on speed. Jacob, you were saying earlier you didn't think that cars were going to be able to get away from one another.
No, I think it's really going to depend on if anybody's able to kind of break that draft near the front of the field, right? We occasionally see it. I think we might have seen it in the P1 600 last year. There was a couple cars that were kind of able to pull away and slice off that lead draft and start to make something of it. And you tend to see that at some of these 2-mile tracks. So be interesting to see just how quickly, if at all, that anybody's able to kind of make that breakaway at the front, or if even anybody wants to, right? We're talking about fuel economy a good bit here. These cars are going to have to pit potentially multiple times at that. So if you can try to save time by not coming down the pit lane as much, I think people are going to be looking for that more than anything.
Jacob, it's one of those at 100 laps at a track like California. The one stop is out of the question. I don't think I've ever seen anybody make it 50 laps here. The most that I can recall would be, I believe Rob Malechka made 47 at Michigan once, and I thought that was the craziest thing I'd ever seen. But truthfully, you're going to have to make 2 stops. The question for me is going to be one of strategy. This man right here, Marco Brazil, is one who likes to split the race into 3 segments. He also traditionally will run the least amount of downforce among any of the other drivers. And so look for Marco to pit lap 33, lap 34. The short pit can be very, very effective here, Jacob, because you get to use the draft. You will go a lap down, but you get to use the draft of the other cars to pull yourself back up through the field. And then when they pit, you can get separation that way. You also may get separation if guys go super long and they just take fuel only at the end. You might, 50 laps is out of the question, but 45 is certainly pretty easy to do here. So you might see guys come in and get that 5-gallon splash at the end, not take tires. However it's going to go, we're about to find out. The pace car is going to duck off onto pit road. Barney's got the green flag in the air. Marco Brazil is going to lead him down. And Jacob, get ready for 200 miles at Fontana.
Fairly neat and orderly through the bulk of the top 5 here, as most of the cars have strung out single file, barring, say, Chad Simpson and Anna Klimek fighting for that 3rd spot.
Yeah, I think outside of that lead right there with Marco and Casey Pavlonis. Now, Casey Pavlonis is one who's going to fight, Jacob, and he's already diving down to the bottom of leader Marco Brazil. The cheese man, Casey Pavlonis, he's going to hunt for the lead. Other than Pavlonis and maybe Chad Simpson, I would expect most of these drivers, I'm not going to say ride the brake, but be very ginger on the old loud pedal as they go here, Jacob.
Yeah, we're seeing a number of cars make their way past Casey now for effectively the lead couple of spots now, heading through 1 and 2. Be interesting to see how many cars want to fight their way further up the field. We talked about guys like Adam Blocker and Jason Brophy not taking a qualifying time, starting about midway through the field. And we'll see if maybe they want to opt to ride around behind, say, guys like Jesper Orman and some of these guys running near the front of the field to try to make their fuel economy last that little bit longer, get maybe an overcut, try to just push the Firestones nice and light here, give them some grip towards the end of the run and see what they can do then.
It absolutely is. We talked about Blocker and Brophy being teammates. They're right together, 9th and 10th. That's the 2 power slide entries. You've got the Rogue Alliance cars, Jesper Orman and Seb Alexander there. Chad Simpson also a part of that, and then Rashad Craig a little bit further behind them. These guys all race together quite a bit, and that's something that does come into play here. Jacob, Casey Pavlonis to this group maybe is more of an unknown in the Votive Racing League car. Marco Brazil is absolutely a known quantity. Maybe Anna Klimek, Leo Salvador, David Hinger, they might not be as much to that group, and so sometimes your friends are where you find them, and it's sometimes who you know more than anything else. And we'll look to see how those relationships play out. Of course, sometimes there's no love lost between some of those groups either, is there?
No, and I think a lot of people have kind of come to realize that, especially on tracks like this, or even some of your 1.5-mile tracks, you have to be able to kind of work with other cars in some capacity to make results happen, right? We see it pretty frequently in terms of cars maybe working to control multiple lanes throughout the corners to prevent cars from behind being able to generate runs or slide into spots that would put cars, maybe teammates, friends, whoever they've got around them, at a disadvantage or an inopportune place. So it's always kind of about where you've got your friends and where you can find them to keep your car near the front of the field in some of these races.
Well, and the other thing about having friends is if you've got a fast hot rod, you're going to find your own friends. Seb Alexander has moved up through the field. He is currently third, looking down the back of Marco Brazil as Povolonis goes to the inside. Povolonis and Brazil, they've been content more or less, Jacob, to share the lead back and forth. They're not gapping anybody, but what that slingshot that they're doing does, for all the fans at home, is it may not get them to pull away, but it has a calming effect on the rest of the field. As long as they do that and they do it well enough, you're not going to you're not going to be able to pass them. Let's say you might be able to pass the second place car, but you're never going to be able to generate a big enough run to get to the leader.
Yeah, it's essentially trying to set the cars at the front far enough ahead where they can kind of play with each other rather than having to play with the rest of the field, and then the rest of the field can kind of play with whoever falls into that second spot. As we see, I believe that's Henger working the high side on, or so that's Leo Salvador working on Marco Brazil for the lead now.
Yeah, it's Leo Salvador in the M&M's machine. He is second. Marco Brazil leads it. Casey Povolonis, the Cheese Man, is third in the Votive Racing League machine. Seb Alexander for Indy Alliance is fourth. Satellite Racing's Chad Simpson runs along in fifth. You mentioned David Henger, and there's Henger. I believe he is in is that a Red Bull liveried chrome looking deal there, Jacob? Help me out. I believe it is.
Let's get a better look on that machine. It looks like he's got... Well, I'm not seeing any bulls on this car. I'm seeing some eagle-looking things and American flags. So that...
Okay. We'll have to ask him if we get him in the interview booth, but it's a good-looking machine nonetheless. I thought it was one of the Racing Bulls like chrome liveries, but apparently not. Good-looking car for David Henger though. Anna Klimek there runs along in seventh. Jesper Orman is the golden blue car up top, along with old rival Adam Blocker on the bottom in the power slide entry. To the top behind Jesper, you've got Logan Edwards, and the Luke Bansky car on the outside races along the power slide machine of Jason Brophy on the bottom, kind of hanging out toward the back. And this is an MO that we've seen them do quite frequently. The Indy Alliance entry of Rashad Craig, and then the Rogue Racing entry of Ty Keela. You've got Caleb Brashear back here in the Luke Bansky car, Robin Glakis, the known independent. Ella Spice is in the orange machine right there. He is in 16th. And then even further behind them, you've got Olivier Samunu and Cody Grommel. I'd say from Rashad Craig on back, those guys aren't really racing all that hard, Jacob.
No, and I think a lot of these guys kind of know and understand that they have to be willing to kind of just ride some of these opening portions of this race out to have a car to finish at the end, right? You know, we talk about fuel strategy, tire strategy. If these guys are able to kind of just hang on to this lead draft here, be in contact enough where when they come down the pit lane, they could come out and around the same spot, right? They may be able to leapfrog one direction or the other in terms of getting ahead on the strategy, but they want to just at least stay in touch. So when it comes down to that final, say, dozen or so laps, they're in position to try to catch out a win here tonight.
You know, that's very true. To finish first, you must first finish. The other thing is these races can get, I don't want to say processional because that's not the right word, but it's almost like 90 laps of kind of riding and then 10 laps of sheer terror, right? Where you're not really taking a huge amount of risk as they run right now. You see Brazil go back to the inside of Povolonis. Chad Simpson is there. Anna Klimek is there. Alexander and Leo Salvador are right there behind him. But you don't see a lot of risk taking. You don't see a lot of guys making slicing and dicing maneuvers through this pack. We saw Seb Alexander come to the front, but he's kind of found his spot in about fifth there. But what I meant by that is, as docile as it seems right here, Jacob, it's going to get really wild really quick with about 10 laps to go.
Yeah, a lot of times you see people want to basically make their moves as late as they possibly can towards the front of the field, right? Because the longer you give the rest of the field to kind of leapfrog you back, the more opportunity you give them to, well, leapfrog you back, and then you're losing those spots you might have tried to gain earlier on. So that window tends to seem smaller and smaller every time you come to a track like this, because everybody's trying to make up the spots so that nobody else can make them up back on them.
You know, I just said you didn't see a lot of guys slicing and dicing and making crazy moves. Marco Brazil goes to the apron to retake the lead from Anna Klimek. Anna the Deer has moved up to second. Povolonis will go back to third, and there's Anna's deer-looking Taylor Mills Racing entry. She's going to go back to the bottom of Marco Brazil, retake that lead one more time. With the temperatures such as they are, and we'll get the weather back up on the screen because that has been the story for a lot of the preparation for this race, 102 degrees on the track. Jacob, is not a big track temperature. As we look at this, are we looking at significant tire degradation, or are the guys saying that that a set will last pretty much through the run?
I'd imagine that it's going to be pretty atypical to hear people struggling with tire wear, especially with how cold arguably the track is. You know, we've seen races at Fontana that get to that 120, 130 mark in terms of the track temperature, and that's when you start to hear guys maybe struggling late in the run on the tires, having to tighten their cars up a little bit to keep the tires underneath them. When we see Brazil take the lead back from Klimek down the front stretch here. And, you know, we talk about things like tire wear here, and a lot of that's going to be, you know, right front tire wear causing the cars to be harder to turn, right? And at a track like this, it might not look like having a car that's a little bit harder to get off the corner, you know, maybe sliding up a bit, will be all that difficult to maintain. But those walls come at you a lot faster than I think people realize, especially when you're traveling 220 some odd miles an hour through the corners.
Yeah, speaking of travel, let's jump up top. Seb Alexander, he runs along in sixth, and this will give you a good indication of traffic, kind of the speeds that these drivers are facing here. Seb just about 228 trap speed at the end of the front straightaway. He's going to downshift into turn 4, or downshift into fourth gear, and look at him try to split the cars in front, Jacob, just trying to find any little bit of that clean air, try to preserve those firestones.
Yeah, you're basically looking for the hole where you can keep your car in between arcs or wakes in front of you, right? It's kind of the surfing or wakeboarding analogy we have, where you've got basically a big pile of air being thrown at you off the cars ahead of you, and you're basically looking for the spot for where your car is not going to be behind another car for any significant period of time to try to give it as much downforce as it possibly can through the corner.
You know, you most certainly are. And here you are looking off the back of Leo Salvador, and you can kind of see it. Logan Edwards in the Luke Mansky car, he shades a lane higher. He'll drop back to the bottom. You've got Casey Povolonis going up high, and you'll see drivers all the way up against the wall. That wall groove is something that we've seen drivers like Jacob Oster, for example, use to great effect here. Get up on the fence and see if you can't make some ground. But right now, things very, very calm here, Jacob. It's almost it's the calm before the storm, but it almost feels foreboding in a way.
Well, you have to think a lot of this is just patience and planning, right? You're looking at maybe who the cars are around you, who's settled into position in a spot where you might be able to work with them, come down the pit lane at the same time. We've talked about, you know, the power slide cars of Brophy and Blocker, and you have, you know, the Alliance entries of Chad Simpson and friends, if you will. You know, they're going to want to maybe try to get down the pit lane around the same time, and they want to be close enough together where there's not a significant gap between those cars, right? Then they don't have to try to work each other back into their draft strategy, maybe doing some swapping, trying to make up ground come the end of the stints here.
Most certainly so. Do want to point out for the fans at home, the pit window is about ready to open. So the earliest you can make, you're going to have to make 2 stops. The earliest you can do that is lap 24. Would be my guess. 24, 25, 26 would be the earliest you could do that. Now, Jacob, it would not be to advantage to do that, but that would be the earliest you could come down would be about lap 25. 24, 25. I would expect that Marco Brazil is going to split this into three segments, so to speak. And so I would look for Marco at lap 34, right at the edge right at that marker, and that's something that he'll do because he's one of those drivers, like Anna Klimek, for example. Robin Glakis is another one. Ella Spice, Samunu Grommel. They're closer to the back, but they don't have any teammates here, and so they don't have a way to set up that draft. They're going to have to come in a spot where they know they're going to be able to pick up a draft, and that's going to be the short pit.
I think the big thing that we're kind of missing out and discussing here too, right, is we're on an oval and we can receive a full course yellow at a point in time that may throw some of that strategy around just that little bit and may start to allow drivers to have a couple options when it comes to when they want to come down the pit lane. Do they want to try to stay out as long as possible and catch that yellow when other cars have to maybe take a wave around and pit at a different point in time? It's not super frequent that it happens, but it does tend to throw a monkey wrench in every once in a while when the yellow comes out at an inopportune time for some of these drivers.
Well, and if we're going to have a yellow here at Fontana as we work lap 24 into 25, we're already at quarter distance here, Jacob. But if there's going to be a yellow here, it does tend to be in the pit stop cycle.
Yeah, very tricky getting these cars slowed down from 220 down to, 55, 60, whatever the pit lane speed limit is here. And to do it in a way where the car doesn't want to loop around, right? You're putting a lot of pressure on the brakes, getting the car slowed down, especially on worn out tires. That makes it even more difficult to do that as we see more cars start to try to swap around near the front of this field as we see Salvador to the lead.
Yep, Leo Salvador will go back to the lead. Marco Brazil will stay in second. Anna Klimek led it for a couple, and now she is back to third. It's not for me getting on the pit lane here that's difficult, although pit lane here is difficult to get on. It's very bumpy. It's very bumpy down there. The apron is pretty dirty in the scan, and so getting off a pit road on cold tires, the apron's pretty narrow. It's pretty bumpy, and you don't have a lot of grip. These cars, of course, in the low downforce super speedway configuration, it's pretty easy to loop the car on the apron, Jacob, trying to get off a pit lane.
Yeah, it's not super uncommon. We've seen at a number of these bigger tracks where the aprons are a bit uneven. We've seen it maybe the newer Atlanta scan where there's kind of a bump coming through 1 and 2 that you have to basically stay as far away from as possible if you want to guarantee your car isn't going to bounce around and spin on you. And that's something that gets underappreciated and lost sometimes with some of these higher skilled drivers, right? As we see them be able to navigate those exits and entries with essentially the most cutthroat precision that there is. But there is that occasional slip up for a car or two that you see it happen, and it can throw the whole race around in an instant.
It most certainly can. Looking at lap 28, coming to start lap 29, it's going to be Marco Brazil back under Leo Salvador. Anna Klimek now is going to race up underneath Salvador. Anna the Deer is going to go for second, and she may try to take the lead here. Don't think she's got the momentum, though. Anna Klimek will fall back into third position, and just right behind her, you've got Seb Alexander, Logan Edwards, and the cheese man, Casey Povolonis. They're right there, Jacob.
Yeah, and a lot of them are working lanes higher up on the track, too, right? We see, a car like Chad Simpson running in essentially what looks like a marked fourth lane up on that high side. He's able to keep a bit more momentum as cars will fade up the track and give him a draft down the straightaway. We'll see that kind of play out a bit here as he gains on the back of Logan Edwards now. And that's how that high line works, right? Is you lose a bit of it on entry because a lot of the cars on the bottom will be able to roll a bit faster because of the tighter radius of the corner, but you're able to carry that exit speed because there's typically going to be a car ahead of you being able to pull you down the straights that'll keep you in it.
100%. That and you tend to lose energy exiting on the bottom where you kind of keep that energy along the high side. The difference is it's longer there, right? You're doing a greater distance. Jacob mentioned the lane marking, something that these drivers will start using later on in the race as it gets tighter at the front of this field. And Chad Simpson, we're on board looking at his left eyeball, humming along, Jacob, 225 miles an hour down the back. You can hear him lift in that car, but drivers will start using those dark lines. Those are the seams in the banking. You'll start seeing guys use those as almost lanes, Jacob.
Yeah, it helps to be able to gauge kind of how close or how far away you can get from the other cars too, right? And a lane here at Auto Club or Fontana or whatever we're calling it is roughly 2 cars wide, right? If you stacked them perfectly next to each other. And you obviously with the speed that we're carrying through the corners here and the amount that these cars tend to travel laterally, as we see Salvador come down the pit lane, you want to have a good bit of room between the cars to prevent any sort of contact or a collision that could potentially cause catastrophic race enders with how close these cars are together.
There you go. Leo Salvador is the first taker on the pit lane. He came on lap 32, coming to start lap 33, and that to me means that we're going to see Marco Brazil here not too much longer. The countrymen, the Brazilians, may be looking to work together. Brazil is known for this, and so Clindy, he's kind of asking who's going to do the 33, 33, 34. We've got one candidate. That is Leo Salvador. I would think that you're going to see Marco Brazil at any given moment as Logan Edwards in the Luke Mansky car has moved himself up into second, and Seb Alexander is now fighting with Anna Klimek for third.
I'm wondering if some of these guys are starting to get an idea of where they want to be lined up coming into the pit lane, right? We're seeing some of those moves from an Alexander or a Klimek to try to make closer to the front here. No takers this time by near the front of the field. But, if you can get your car in a spot where you're a couple cars ahead, that may be all it takes to put you out a couple seconds ahead of another car once the cycle comes around, if you're able to hold on to a toe just a little bit better.
Well, and it didn't work out for Leo Salvador. So he came in from the front, and he has completely lost the lead draft. Salvador is out, but he is a lap down, and he has lost that lead draft. And the speed tells the story here. Leo Salvador is only doing 220 miles an hour down the backstretch. That is very much at a deficit for speed. Marco Brazil has come into the pit lane, so Marco is gonna give in at lap 36. Now, I do want to point out, Adam Blocker has started to move toward the front of this field. Jason Brophy, not so much. Brophy's still in the lead pack. You can kind of see his green and black car bouncing along back there next to Caleb Brashear. But Adam Blocker is coming toward the front. Seb Alexander is now your leader. And Blocker with a power move into second. And Jesper Orman making his way to the front of the field as well.
I think this is something that they are thinking about in the back of their heads, right? If they can get, say, Brophy and Blocker lined up, or when one comes to pit lane, the other one can tag team with them, that they're going to be able to have a draft. As we see Anna Klimek making the call to the pit lane now, we'll see her come in this go around. But that's going to be a thing to keep in mind too, right? Is if you can have multiple cars to work with as you come in or out of the pit lane, that's going to play huge dividends, as we see kind of the inverse of that with Salvador out there all on his lonesome.
And there you do. Now, do want to point out, Marco Brazil, was he able to make it back into the draft? The answer is Marco did not. Now, is he going any faster than Leo Salvador? He is, but he's still giving up 3 miles an hour down the front straight to these guys that are in the draft. So kind of keep that in mind. Jesper Orman goes to the lead. Jason Brophy, just like that, flips the light switch. He's up to fourth. So now it's Blocker, Orman, Brophy, Alexander, and Povolonis in your top 5, just like that. Jacob, the power slide entries, the veteran Jesper Orman, into the pit cycle, they've come to the front of the pack.
You got to wonder when does the pit window open for some of these guys? They were running deeper in the field, probably saving a bit more fuel than the front runners until maybe they've made this push to the front and are maybe burning up whatever they had saved up. When does that window necessarily open? We're working on the lap 40 now. Are we going to see people try to stretch it to, say, a 40, a 42, a 43, try to make it as long as humanly possible
42,
on this tank of gas?
Yeah, 42, 43 is pretty comfortable, as you see Jason Brophy go past Adam Blocker. 42, 43 is pretty comfortable. Jacob, any more than that, you can get to 45 if you're in the pack the entire time. Adam Blocker goes to the lead over Jason Brophy, Seb Alexander third, Orman fourth. As we see Casey Povolonis and Logan Edwards come to pit lane, 40 is pretty comfortable just with normal drafting. 42, 43 you can get to with some effort. Any more than that, you have to be really good at fuel saving. Clindy in the chat said 45, 45, 10 is possible. Yes, it is possible, but you have to be champion balloon foot. I don't see how, Alex Van de Zandt, guys like him and Robert Malechka can do 47, 48 laps. I've seen it done. Seb Alexander is going to pull the pit lane along with Caleb Brashear here at 41 coming to get 42. But this is about the end of where most guys will be. Fair enough, Jacob? I think 42, 43 laps is about the end of it. You can go more than that, but you have to really, really save hard.
Yeah, we'll just have to see. We've had about half the cars pit now, as Alexander would be the 9th of 18, I believe, to make it down the pit lane, as he'll trail Caleb Brashear coming out the pit lane. Lead lap cars will be making their way by right now.
Most certainly will. Brophy and Blocker continue. The Killer Bees at the front of this thing, they continue to kind of swap back and forth. Jesper Orman, Ty Keela, Chad Simpson, Rashad Craig. They're just the interested observers. Let's hop on board defending champion Rashad Craig and kind of see what he sees. Rashad is one of those guys, he's more known as a road racer. In comes Simpson, in comes Brophy. He's more known as a road racer than an oval guy. But I got to tell you, Jacob, Rashad Craig is sneaky good, especially here.
I think a big thing of that, too, is just exercising a good amount of patience, right? We talk about things like, the balloon foot, if you will, and that's something you're probably a bit more accustomed to try to keep traction out of, corners on road courses, right? As you see a lot more throttle control play into there. That's why you see a lot of road race ringers play a bit better on the short ovals. Jesper Orman locks up trying to get down to the pit lane.
Yes, he does. We saw that from the onboard of Rashad Craig. And there's Jesper Orman, and we're going to get the replay of Jesper as he comes to the pit lane. You were talking about it, Jacob. Just trying to be aggressive. Adam Blocker nearly lost it in front of Jesper. Jesper does lose it. He critically does not cross the pit entry cone. And so he's not going to get a penalty, but a ton of lost time for Jesper Orman.
And, we talked about entry and exit being the biggest opportunity for a caution to come out. If Jesper's car maybe stops on the apron or the lower levels of the racetrack, that could just as easily have been a caution and maybe caught a couple cars out a lap down.
It most certainly could have. The leader from all this that's going to cycle through, it's going to be Jason Brophy. Ty Keela critically beat Adam Blocker off a pit lane. So Brophy will lead it from Klimek and Marco Brazil. Seb Alexander is going to come by in the 4th spot, and he's going to do battle with Ty Keela. You've got Caleb Brashear and Adam Blocker. Casey Povolonis. The top 8 have more or less broken away from Rashad Craig, Alice Spikes, Chad Simpson, and others. Now, they will catch back up. They are less than 0.8 of a second behind, and so the draft will get them back. Just a matter of a few laps time for that to all close back up. But for our man Clindy in the chat, I think he's got this on quiet mode. Jacob, would that be accurate? Is it a concert? So we're gonna do this. We'll put the stint times up so that old Clindy can see when everybody stopped last. And there you go. Anna Klimek, Marco Brazil, they are leading, but they are among the drivers that have been out the longest. Leo Salvador, he is barely hanging on to the draft, Jacob. He lost a ton of time in his over his pit stops. He's been out the longest, by the way, at 14 laps. So there you can kind of see the pit stops where they are in their cycle. Klimek and Brazil, they're pretty close to a third of the way through. There's some of these guys just stopped. Ty Keela, for example, he's only 3 laps into his current run.
Yeah, the big thing to kind of watch here is some of these cars maybe trailing towards the back of the lead pack now, like a Salvador, who is maybe a bit deeper, having to work their way back into this lead draft situation. is are they going to make the same decision this time around? Maybe they've opted to do a heavier fuel save now that they've caught the field and are going to try to run a bit longer here to maybe make up the lap difference and come out around the same time that some of these other cars maybe did the opening portion of this race.
Well, I don't know, Jacob. They're going to have to hustle. We're on board with Leo Salvador right now. He's 1.1 seconds behind Ellis Spice. So he and Robin Glakis at this point, they're going to almost have to work together or they're going to lose that draft. You see the pack ahead of Salvador and Glakis. They're in danger of losing that pack.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, right? Is you have that gap, but there's also all the cars already organized at the front that are able to just use that draft to their advantage and pull away from cars that aren't quite in it. And that's super, super critical, right? That's basically the gateway to the promised land, if you like to think about it that way. Is you've got to stay with the pack to be able to have a shot at it come the end of the race, and you don't want to lose that on that early and have to basically spend the rest of the race running around hoping for a yellow to come out.
You don't. Now, a man who would like a yellow is right here, Jesper Orman. He is 16th. He had that slide through the grass. He's got Cody Grommel with him. That's not Grommel. That is...
It's Logan Edwards.
That's Logan Edwards, who's a lap down. So he's got Logan Edwards with him. And those two can kind of swap together, Jacob. They're not going to catch anybody, but they can at least they're about 7 seconds behind the leader, so 6 seconds behind the draft. They might make a little bit in terms of inroads here. The biggest thing that they can do though is they can keep from losing any more ground. Both of those drivers though desperately hoping for a caution. They like to see one as soon as practicable, we'll say.
And they may only have a dozen or so laps to go before we see a potential opportunity as cars will come back down the pit lane for the second of presumably 2 stops here for the bulk of the field tonight.
Yeah, Marco Brazil is halfway to his second stop. We would anticipate Marco Brazil is going to stop sometime about lap 66, 67, 68, somewhere in there. Leo Salvador is going to have to come quicker than that. He might be in at lap 64 or so. The front of the field is Marco Brazil, Anna Klimek, Jason Brophy, Adam Blocker, Seb Alexander. And here's the situation with that deal. Klimek is way short on gas as opposed to Brophy, Blocker, and Alexander. Something like anywhere between 4 to 7 laps. And so I get the feeling that they might Jacob, I get the feeling that they might be saving some fuel from P3 on back at the expense of the 2 leaders. Did get a question from Clindy as to what would have happened to Logan Edwards. I did not see a speeding ticket for him. He did not start from the pit lane. As a matter of fact, he was up among the top 5. The top 5 here. It could have just been a slow pit stop or some sort of an issue exiting, and we just didn't catch it. But at any rate, he's gone a lap down. He is back slingshotting with Jesper Orman as those two continue to try to just hold serve. There's Jesper and Logan coming out of turn 2 down the backstretch. The battle for the lead is coming off of turn number 4. It's going to be Marco Brazil, Anna Klimek, Jason Brophy, Adam Blocker, Seb Alexander. As we passed halfway, and Jacob, again, we're nosing in on the final round of pit stops already within the next 10 laps or so.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those things that where the pit stops will come, and it's basically going to be full send, push to the end, I would think, at least to some extent, until the field kind of bunches back together. I went back and looked. It looks like Edwards may have had a speeding penalty at some point, as he spent about 2 minutes on the lap he came down the pit lane. So I'm suspecting at least part of that had to have been a stop and hold penalty before his car could be serviced.
Gotcha. So he was in the pit box for 50 seconds, and so Clindy, that may be a speeding ticket. We're not for sure. I did go back and look at the events in ATVO, and we did not see a speeding ticket. So I did not see a speeding ticket. So sometimes iRacing doesn't pick that up. I think that question has been answered though, Jacob. He spent 50 seconds in his pit box. That's going to be too fast entering. Would be my guess. As far as Jesper Orman, his last lap 32.850, 32.892 for Anna Klimek in the lead, 32.901 for Marco in second. So he is edging ever so slightly toward the front of this field. He's about 7 seconds behind Olivier Samunu for to get back into the lead draft. So not quite 2/10 a lap, just maybe a tenth. I think his best chance, Jacob, if there is a chance for Jesper, outside barring a yellow, it's going to be linking up with one of these early adopters as they come into pit lane and really kind of trying to hang on to them. I don't know that, nothing against Logan Edwards, but I don't know that Logan's car is the fastest outside of a draft. And so he may be needing to get with somebody like Marco that's got a really super fast car by themselves to help tow him back up there. But other than that, Jesper is going to need a yellow.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, right? Is you need an awfully big break once you're away from that lead draft to catch it back. You know, the yellow's the easiest thing because that resets the field top to bottom and puts you right back in it. But if you could maybe latch onto a car that pits early, is able to drag you closer to the field before your stop, and then you're at least on the tail end of the lead pack come the end of the cycle, that's about all you can really hope for at that point.
You can, and the other thing is Jesper does have that flexibility. He was among the last to pit, 16 laps on his current run, so he could theoretically go another 20 laps easily here and be in good shape. Marco Brazil does lead it from Anna Klimek. Those two are going to be on pit lane basically any time now. The window is going to open for them in about 3 more laps, and then they're going to pit. They can pit at any time. Marco Brazil probably only has a maximum of 10 laps left in that tank, Jacob.
Yeah, and you've got to think that he's going to at least try to exhaust the bulk of that, if not all of it, to try to keep it to where he doesn't have to spend as much time in the pit box receiving fuel, right? You know, these guys are going to likely want to try to full push the end here, map 1, full send, try to get as much as they can, and that does burn up more fuel, so they're going to have to put in maybe a bit more fuel in the car than they would if they were trying to maybe make a save number in the closing stint.
They most certainly are, and you think about Anna Klimek. She has been extremely fast here. Is she going to be able to hold up? And then the other thing is, Jacob, we know what's coming, and what's coming is the Dark Knight Adam Blocker, car number 1, position number 4. You can hear that machine audibly lifting in the corners and down the straightaways. That's a guy that is not going anywhere, but try to avoid the gas station.
Yeah, the less fuel you can put in the car, the less time you're in the pits, and the faster you can get back out onto the racing surface. And that's where the time is truly made, is spending as little time as possible parked at a stop.
That is true. Now, there are diminishing returns. For example, it takes about 9 gallons. Just so everybody knows, it takes about 9 gallons to change the tires anyway, and so after that, there's really not a lot to be gained, right? If you're going to take tires, the interesting one is going to be if somebody saves enough to only take, let's say, 5 gallons of fuel, and you don't take tires at the end. Are they going to be able to squirt free of the draft? And if that happens, would they be able to then win the race? Those are the questions that are about to be answered at 66 of 100. We know that Klimek and Brazil are going to have to stop here pretty shortly. They are in their windows. We see Brophy and Blocker lifting out of the power in the draft. We would assume that Seb Alexander is doing the same, as is Ty Keela and Caleb Brashear, Rashad Craig. They're just kind of waiting to see here, Jacob, what transpires after Klimek and Brazil hit the pit road.
And it's all going to be coming down to who you can stay bunched up with, too, right? We see Alexander, Keela, Brashear, Craig. You know, there's a lot of those cars that I'd imagine are willing to work together to try to overcome some of the front runners to make their way to the lead come the end of it. And if they can all be grouped up in a four-person conga line or however many cars they've got to try to work their way forward, that certainly helps.
It most certainly does. Do want to point out Jesper Orman has made some inroads. He's picked up about 1 1/3 seconds on Olivier Simonu in that 15th spot. So he's now 5.6, 5.5 seconds behind the draft. Jesper is frantically chasing this draft, but it continues to be a situation where he looks to be running short of time. But we'll keep you updated on that. Meanwhile, my eyes are on Klimek in Brazil. Marco Brazil and Anna Klimek were leading the race after everything shook out the last time. So are they going to be able to do the same thing here? The other bit is that after they make their pit stops and cycle back out, they're likely going to cycle right into the laps of Jesper Orman and Logan Edwards. Would be about where they should come out when they pit. So that will be interesting as well. Who's going to help who when it gets down to Marco and Anna being with Jesper and Logan? And who does that benefit? Do they come out in front and suck Jesper toward the pack? Or do they come out behind him and Jesper and Logan benefit Marco?
Well, you'd have to imagine that as soon as they get out there, they're going to want to be trying to make up time. So wherever puts them at the point where they're gaining time rather than losing it, right? If it's they come out ahead, they don't want to maybe spend the time to try to let those cars behind back around them, especially if maybe some of those cars are in a tighter fuel situation or not pushing quite as hard just yet. That may be all the difference it takes, and they'll take the lead of that train and try to send it all the way back up to the front of the field.
Well, and of some benefit to Jesper Orman, Olivier Simonu is kind of losing the back of this draft. And as he falls backwards, that just means that Jesper inches closer to the draft of Olivier Simonu. It's about 4.9 seconds now. I'm simply waiting to see when Marco pits and when that's going to trigger everybody to come in. This is going to be lap 36 of his fuel run. So that number 6 machine is getting close to bingo on gas, my man.
Well, you have to imagine they're going to use every drop out of it and get into the pit lane and fill it up just enough to make the distance here. Pretty much any extra fuel that you're putting in there is not going to do you much good come the end of this deal.
No, it's not, but he's going to have to be almost out of gas, and here he comes. Marco Brazil is going to trigger the final set of pit stops. Leo Salvador comes in with him and behind him. So Marco is going to have to take more or less a full tank here. It would be 13.5 gallons to get him home, assuming rule of thumb, which is 2 laps to the gallon here. Anna Klimek is going to be next, and that's going to hand the lead to Blocker, Brophy, Alexander, and so on. Here's Anna Klimek as she fires down on the pit lane, and she is going to have some company. Ellis Spice too fast entering pit lane. Did you see how fast he came in, Jacob?
I just caught the tail end of it, seeing him finally make the transition down onto the banking, and he was catching Klimek like it looked like that car was standing still. This is
worth another watch. Watch Ellis Spice. Now keep in mind this is at replay speed. Watch Ellis as he's gonna come through here. Jacob, he's gonna come around Robin Glakis. He's going down a backstretch. Ho hum. Anna Klimek is gonna peel in down here to the pit lane, and watch this. Good looking hot rod, by the way. Got some flames on that guy. Whoa, slow down. He's lucky he didn't hit the pit attenuator there, Jacob.
Yeah, that's certainly one that comes up on you quicker than you'd expect sometimes here, too, is as close as you want to get to that outside pit wall.
It does, but sometimes it can be target fixation. You see the car in front of you coming to the pit lane. Hey, I'd like to get fuel and tires myself. Whoa, I need to slow down, and I missed my braking point about 100 yards back the other way, and now I'm too fast. Do want to point out that the situation for Jesper Orman and Caleb Brashear on a Klimek, it worked out exactly as I thought it might. Jesper and here comes Jesper. He's going to come to the pit lane. But it worked out just as I thought it would, is that they all came out together. So let's see how that benefits Jesper Orman. If it does, he's going to come to the pit lane, grab fuel and tires, lap 77 of 120. And now it's a matter of when Blocker, Brophy, Alexander, Povolonis, Craig, Ty Keela, Caleb Brashear, and this crew all decide to hit pit lane. There's about 9 of them right in a wad there, Jacob.
Yeah, you got to imagine it's going to be the next 2 or 3 laps, almost certainly, if they're going to do roughly what they did the opening stint, maybe a couple longer if they've opted for that 42, 43 number we were talking a bit earlier on in the race. Going to give them roughly 15 laps to the finish by that point if they go that full length. That's basically just going to be hold your foot to the floor and hope you can get your car out to the front before the checkered flag falls.
Any thought to gas only here, Jacob?
I would think you'd maybe at least consider it. I think at that 15 lap mark, you're getting kind of in the window where you're taking less fuel than that 9-gallon mark we were talking about where the tires come into it. But I just don't think that's going to be enough to prevent the pack from reeling you back in. And I imagine you just want the tires at that point.
There you go. And look, caution. Caution is on the speedway. Caution is out. Jesper Orman is broken in turn number 4. Logan Edwards is also going slowly. Olivier Simonu has the meatball. He must respect that. And so let's see what's happened here. Those, you had Simonu and Orman along with Leo Salvador drafting together, and some really bad netco there between Simonu and Orman sends both of those cars hard into the outside wall. Tough break for Jesper Orman, he'd done so much work, Jacob, and was in position to be racing with the pack at the end.
Yeah, I mean, he was up with other cars that were in that lead draft to begin with. So all he had to do was kind of stay there, and just unfortunate circumstances send his car hard into that outside wall, ending his night.
Yes, indeed. So Orman and Simonu out of this race. Do want to point out that Klimek, Brazil, Salvador, Anglakis, Grommel, and Logan Edwards, Klimek, Brazil, and Salvador and Anglakis are all 1 lap down. They have already stopped. They will get the wave around here. Grommel, Edwards, Spice are 2 laps down. Those cars are going to be waved back to 1 lap down, and that's likely where they'll stay. They will be in the lead pack, but they're going to have the disadvantage of only having older tires, which I don't necessarily think that's a huge thing here. Do you, Jacob?
I wouldn't think in their situation that's going to be too much of an issue.
It is. If you want to consider it chilly, at 102, we started the race 102 on the track. It's down to 97. So the cooler it gets, the less tires matter. And this last, call it 17 lap shootout that we're about to get, Jacob, this is going to be about as good as it gets.
Yeah, the time to go is now. These cars have enough fuel, enough tire to hold the foot to the floor and send every possible move they can possibly make. It's going to look like a 2-mile dirt track event here with the amount of cars going bottom lane to top lane trying to make moves coming into this one.
You know, it most certainly will. Everybody's going to have fresh tires at the front of this field. You're going to see several cars get the wave around here. Early leaders, Marco Brazil, Anna Klimek are among those drivers that are going to get the wave by, get a lap back. And you've got the old pros up at the front, Jacob. Blocker, Alexander, Casey Povolonis, the Cheese Whiz man, is 3rd. Chad Simpson, that's another veteran, 4th. Tyquila is involved, one of the better drivers in the fixed oval series. Rashad Craig, the defending series champion, is 6th. The cream came back to the top, didn't it, Jacob?
It always does, and this is going to be the time in which you see them try to make every possible bit of everything count here with the last dozen and a half laps come the end of this deal.
You know, most certainly so. And I said this earlier, and I don't recall if I said it on the air. I said it in private. Don't sleep on this man right here, Rashad Craig. He is the defending series champion, but the driver of the Indy Alliance black and lime car, he is sneaky good at these drafting ovals. You wouldn't expect it from Rashad, more known as a road racer, but he raced me extremely close here the last time we came to California in the Indy Open Series. I wound up taking home the flag. Rashad ran 2nd, but he is very good at this. And unfortunately, unfortunately for him, he's without one of his wingmen, Jesper Orman. But don't count Rashad Craig out of this by a long shot. Sleeper running along in 6th.
And we're just about ready to get going to green here, I do believe.
We are indeed. Jesper Orman checking in the chat. Says it's unfortunate. He thinks he had a chance to come back there. We did too. Jesper, we thought that you had a very good chance we thought you had a very good chance, especially once you'd hooked up with Marco. The net code just made it not to be, unfortunately. Here comes the green flag. Barney's got it in his hand.
Green.
Pull the belt tight, Jacob, and if you don't like this, I don't know what to tell you as far as a motor racing fan goes. This is about to get intense.
Yeah, we see a solid launch from Blocker, but a number of these cars, couple cars back, we see Tyquila start working. He's going to jump to the low side here on Povolones coming into turn 3 as Blocker's going to snake down the back straightaway to try to stay out of the draft window of Alexander on the high side.
He is going to try to snake and break that draft. He's also going to try to guard the bottom. The bottom line here at Fontana is the dominant line. You do not want to give that up as they go 3 wide for 2nd. Povolones on the top. Alexander is the meat in the sandwich. Tyquila on the bottom. Tyquila is going to lift out of that. Alexander is going to go back to 2nd. And the dragon begins anew down the back, Jacob. Alexander is going to go to the high side. He'll bid for the lead.
Go the long way around, but we see Blocker start to inch as the corner progresses, heading down the front stretch. But we do see Tyquila shoot to the high side now. It's going to be 3 wide for the lead.
Most certainly is. That's Blocker on the bottom, Alexander in the middle, Tyquila on the top. Make it 4 wide. Jason Brophy is going to try to pass him from San Bernardino. He doesn't quite get it done, though, Jacob. And they fall back more or less single file down the back now. Alexander really has the only chance on Blocker, and he is going to have to hold him tight on that bottom and force him to burn off those tires. I don't know that he can do it in less than 20 laps, though, Jacob.
Yeah, that's going to be the tough part, is trying to get it to where Blocker gets that kind of that tight feeling, trying to hold the bottom on used up tires with how short of a run we've got here to the end. So we've got only 15 to go here, working lap 86.
It is very, if this track had the start-finish line on the back, on the straightaway, you might be able to nip the guy on the inside, but it is very difficult to make that outside work coming to the start-finish line in the middle of the D, and we're going to go 4 wide one more time. Povolones to the outside of Brophy. They're 4x4, Jacob, going for the lead of this thing.
Yeah, if there's a lane on the track that you can fit a car, it's going to get used for a car coming to the end of this thing. There's nobody who's going to take any chance of not having a shot to win this thing.
There you go. We're going to jump on board with Rashad Craig. He has fallen back to the 6th position, and watch him fan out here as we get down to decide it. 87 of 100, coming to get 88. 13 circuits left, 26 miles to decide it, and look at the run Rashad Craig gets on the top.
The question for Rashad is, where does he go when he gets a run like that? We're seeing cars run all the way to the wall at the front of the field. You're basically going to have to get ahead of cars running near you and side the way up or way down, trying to make your way past the cars ahead of you.
You're going to have to make some wild maneuvers in order to move that machine through. Rashad Craig is very, very, very good at sneaking through. It's almost like the movie Cars, where he drives through the tractors. Remember that?
Something like that.
Pick your hole, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. That's what you're doing if you're on row 3, like Craig, David Hinger. You got Povolonis back there now. Caleb Brashear, I'm going to tell you, has come to the front. He's making some noise. Brashear in the Luke Mansky machine has made it up to 5th. Now, he doesn't have any help from a teammate up there, but Brashear is coming toward the front, and here comes Craig. He's going to make it 4. It is 4 wide now. He's going to get to the front of the line, and he chops the nose off of Brashear. This is starting to get dicey now, Jacob. And as the laps count down, the more intense these moves get.
The one thing that's remained constant, though, is Blocker and Alexander working those bottom 2 most lanes at the front of this field. Nobody's really been able to make a move by them just yet. See Alexander hop to the outside. We might just see ourselves kind of an IRL-style pip of the outside lane at the line here, because I believe Alexander led that time by.
It is possible. The other thing that is possible, or the other thing I want to point out, is that they have managed to separate Blocker and Brophy. So the 2 Power Slide teammates are not able, in this instance, as they have in the past, to kind of run lanes 1 and 2 and force everybody to drive around him in lane 3. Not so here. Alexander is in P2. You've got Tyquila there in 3rd or 4th, depending on where the scoring loop is. They're not able, the Power Slide cars are not able to work together as yet to kind of lock out the field. And that's not something that we normally see. Normally you would see those 2 cars right together. Not so. Seb Alexander works one more time to the outside of Adam Blocker, and he is leading now at the end of the straightaways. We'll have to watch it at the line. Whoa! Contact made between Blocker and Brophy, or excuse me, between Alexander and Brophy. They both save it. They both continue on. But now it's Adam Blocker fighting with Tyquila, Caleb Brashear, and Rashad Craig has made his way to 4th. And now there is no wingman for Adam Blocker. Jason Brophy has fallen back to the 10th spot.
And if there's anything I've seen throughout this run here, is that Tyquila is willing to put his car just about anywhere in front of another car to stay at the front of his line. So we'll see how that pays out for him with 6 to go here, or 7 to go here.
Most certainly so. Looking from the roll hoop of Tyquila, and we'll look off the rear of Adam Blocker, trying to hold off the horde. But Tyquila, just like Seb Alexander before him, is able to make it nose ahead at the end of the straightaways. Is he going to be able to nose ahead at the start-finish line? Not this time, but you time it right. You've got a shot, and Seb Alexander is trying to find a late race rally. He's made it back up to the outside of row 2.
Yeah, we see Ty drop down to that bottom lane to make the run to the high side. Again, he's going to lead going into 3 here, but Blocker's going to have that preferred lane on the bottom and start inching ahead as Brashear shoots up to that 3rd lane.
He does indeed. Seb Alexander right behind Caleb Brashear, and you got a hungry Marco Brazil behind Seb. We're going to go 4 wide for 2nd. Make that 4th. Marco backs out of it, so we're 3 by 3 by 3, and Robin Glakis has made it to the front of this train. He runs along in 9th. Make that outside in row 3. Now you just wonder, Jacob, how long are the netcode gods going to let us do this?
Well, I almost thought for certain when Alexander and Brophy got together, that was going to be the end of it for the bulk of this field, because they were 45 degrees nosed into each other for a brief moment there. We'll see if we can keep getting away with it for another 4 laps as Taikila again working that high side, trying to make a move down into turn number 3 as Brashear will shoot high, send it 3 wide for the lead. Oh, around goes Alexander.
Seb Alexander hard in the turn number 3 wall, and I believe he's got Rashad Craig with him. Robin Glakis also collected, and that is Logan Edwards up high there as well. It's a tough break for those cars. And let's see what we have. You're looking at the 2 Indy Alliance machines. That's black on green for Rashad Craig, black on copper for Seb Alexander as they run down the back. And this is going to finish this race. Adam Blocker is going to win. Caleb Brashear is going to be second. Taikila is third. And that did look like, well, that's hard to say, Jacob. I'm
seeing a slight bubble of net code coming into the corner there, but that still looks like it's going to be contact almost no matter how you slice it.
Yeah, this will be a good look here. It was netcode, however, had the trajectory held, you would have seen contact there, likely anyway. Just a tough break all the way around. Seb Alexander, Rashad Craig make contact, collected Robin Glakis and Logan Edwards, and it's going to be a finish under yellow, and the win for this man, Adam Blocker. Taikila jokingly gives it the fakesy do down toward the pit lane, but it'll be another win for the Dark Knight here under yellow. Adam Blocker will take the win at California. Taikila will be second. Caleb Brashear, Jason Brophy, and Marco Brazil will round out the top 5.
And how about Jason Brophy? He fell back probably to the tail end of that lead group of cars and was able to fight back and be in contention to win.
Most certainly so. So great fight back for Jason Brophy. I do want to point out that we are not done here on P1 on Monday night. It is the past, the present, and the future of IndyCar right here on P1. Right now, we're in the present. IndyCar's in the current car at Fontana, one of the classic IndyCar tracks in the service. Immediately following this, immediately following the driver interviews, we're going to send everybody on over to the Onyx Racing League Lotus 79s, Jacob, and they are currently running at...
Want to say it was Motegi?
Yes, tonight's round is at Motegi, and so that's going to be an absolute treat. And then Jacob Collins will be back at 10 o'clock with the Indy Next Series, and you guys are at Laguna Seca this week?
No, we're at the Indianapolis Road Course. So we're actually at Indy.
You are at Indy Road. I gotcha. So end of California here, then on the Lotus 79s at Motegi, and we'll end the night with Jacob Collins in the Indy Next Series at the Indy Road Course. Tomorrow night, of course, the flagship broadcast, the IR18 and the IndyCar Oval Series will visit Rockingham. And then Jacob, the Indy Next cars will immediately follow that. And that series is where tomorrow night?
North Wilkesboro, a doubleheader of North Carolina short track action.
I wouldn't call Rockingham a short track. It's over a mile. Come on now, Jacob.
No, it's 1 mile flat. It depends on your definition. I wouldn't consider it a short track, but I also love Milwaukee, and that's not a short track either.
Yes, but you're from Milwaukee. You're required by state law to love it. Come on. Wednesday, of course, we'll have the Horizon IndyCar Series and the Formula Indy Series. Those go off at 8 and 8:20 respectively. Thursday and Friday, it is championship weekend for the AMA. The Blackmagic Studios Grand National Series, 8:20 pre-race, 8:35 start on Thursday night. Same time on Friday night for the AMA Archway Industrial Coatings Truck Series. Both of those races are from Phoenix. And then, Jacob, mercifully, I don't have to call a stock car race again for 4 months. How about that?
Well, Mark, you could call a stock car race anytime you want. You just got to find another one to do it.
That's very true. Ryan O'Donohue, one of the championship contenders, he and Kendall Paul pulled off a pretty rare feat, Jacob. They're going to be racing for a championship on both nights And that's something that doesn't happen in the AMA very often. So congratulations to Ryan O'Donohue, and we're certainly going to be cheering him on Thursday and Friday. And that concludes the schedule here on P1. You've got the votive IndyCar Series finale on Sunday night, and then we're back to official action next Monday, Jacob.
Yeah, we'll be taking on Sonoma for the first time in a while.
Yay, Sonoma! Head out to the wine country. Don't tell my wife.
Freshly rescanned for this season. The asphalt is basically as new can get, so we'll see how that place plans out.
Yes, indeed. Tonight, winner under yellow, Adam Blocker. Ty Keela comes home second. Caleb Brashear, the Sim Gaming Expo King, he'll be third. Jason Brophy is fourth. And Marco Brazil will round out the top five. Chad Simpson, Anna Clement, Casey Povolonis, David Hinger, and Ellis Spice will be the remainder of the top 10. In 11th spot, Leo Salvador, then Cody Grommel, Seb Alexander, Rashad Craig, Robin Glakis, Logan Edwards, Jesper Orman, and Olivier Simonu are going to round out the finishers. 18 cars took part. It was over a 4,500 SOF, and so that is a big-time number here in the Indy Open Series. Do want to thank all of the drivers for their participation. And we'll get some we'll get some cameras up here for interviews. Where's Caleb? There's Caleb Brashear. Get the results out of the way. And I wonder if we're going to have a very happy Caleb Brashear in the interview room. Caleb, you've got Murph, you've got Jacob Collins in the P1 broadcasting booth. You got a copy, buddy?
Copy.
Well, that was interesting. Jacob tells me that you have a pretty interesting nightlight, and we'll get to that in a minute. Tell us about that wild finish and kind of what you saw and how you picked your way through it, my man.
What I saw was I was this close for if this caution came out like a second later, I would have been in the lead in going into turn 3, but it was basically like I think Jason and Seb got together, so it was like once we got past that panic moment, then it was like, okay, me, Ty, and Blocker, and I was hoping it'd go to the end a little bit. As long as we kept it clean, I was hoping it was going to go to the end because I felt like it was just going to be me, Ty, and Blocker coming across the finish line, and then it would just been a drag race, but unfortunately, the race had to end under that way. I didn't see what exactly happened, though.
No worries. Jacob, what do you have for the bottom step of the podium, Caleb Brashear, this evening?
Yeah, we saw you working kind of about as high as anybody at the front of the field was willing to do here tonight. Do you feel like if there was maybe a bit more time there, you would have been able to garner up the momentum to maybe make that conclusive pass for the lead had it gone green to the end?
Maybe. Nope. Chad Simpson just blew up his engine right behind me while I'm upside down in turn 3 and 4. Ignoring that, I felt like the field was just getting way too chaotic towards the end, and I felt like it was just going to be one of those things where people were just going to stick their nose in just random places. So if that wasn't going to happen, and it felt like it was an actual dogfight between me, Ty, and Blocker, then maybe. But it just felt like, the last 10 laps was just pure panic the entire time. A lot of chopping noses, a lot of this, that, and the other. I'm not saying I'm innocent. I, threw some moves too, but it was just one of those Auto Club and Michigan deals to where you just kind of pray that you get through, and fortunately we did. Got a third place out of it. So
sometimes survival is the key. Caleb, and certainly you survived. How close are you to being able to use your prize from Chicago, by the way?
It has been upgraded has been promoted from a paperweight to a nightlight.
Sweet.
I got it. I got all the the software downloaded, and I can even use the buttons on it. It's very nice. I just can't actually like physically use it to drive. I think I'm just gonna wait for a Black Friday sale at this point. Probably just get SimiCube because that's what I used in Chicago. So at least I'm familiar with what that wheel can do. Probably just wait until Black Friday, or if I see something really nice on Facebook Marketplace, which may happen. But yeah, pretty much Black Friday is the soonest unless something pops up.
There you go, my man. Well, I hope we get to see you use that thing as more than a nightlight, because it was definitely fun being there when you got it. As is the tradition here on P1, and you haven't been on the podium with us before, so as is the tradition, when you get on the podium, you get the mic. Friends, family, sponsors, shout outs. The floor is yours, sir.
I've been on the podium. What are you talking about?
I didn't think
Not
you
this
had
Yeah,
been.
Mark. Indy
Yeah,
next.
Indy next, plus the win in Indy Oval last week.
Well, see, I
plus,
wasn't here for
new
those.
Podium. Well, maybe you should have entered the race and you would have known.
I was in Disney World last
I'm-
weekend. My wife made me take a vacation.
Oh, okay. I see how it is. But anyway, and plus the two podiums I had like last season or 2 seasons ago at Daytona Road and Gateway. Plus
All right.
those two, but
I stand
anyways,
corrected.
shout out sponsor. You stand correct, but shouts all races go to Scott Reddick. Love you, buddy. Also, thank you to Luke Mansky Racing, my teammates Will Weiser, Logan Edwards. Sorry that his race ended not so great, we'll say. And then our new guy, Rafael Leon. He's been doing pretty good in the qualifiers so far, so glad to see him doing well. Our sponsors, iPredictor and iCoaching. Go check those guys out. But other than that, I got a Michelob Ultra and a Great Lakes Oktoberfest waiting in the fridge for me, so we should be good to go.
Very good. Enjoy the ultra. Thank you so much, Caleb. It's good seeing you, buddy. Keep going fast and having fun. You hear?
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir. That is Caleb Brashear, also known as Flow City, and he is one of the most fun guys in the community to be around. Caleb Brashear. Speaking of fun guys to be around, always makes the Mario tone when he enters a room. Ty Keela. Ty, you've got Murph, you've got Collins in the P1 booth. You're bringing home second. What do you think it would have taken to have come around Adam Blocker there and take the flag?
I think just timing the draft right, green flag. I think that's what would have been necessary. I don't know if it would have happened without that. I think it would have just been a snipe. I don't think I had enough pace being on step 2. Maybe if step 1, but I doubt it. Those guys are fast as always. It's just you want to be out front at the right time. So, and if it goes green, I think I'm in a better position. But then again, Caleb probably would have sniped us all. So, you try to position yourself as best you can, and hope the race goes the way that you want it to. And it went the way I wanted it to, but it could have gone just that little bit better. But it went Adam's favor, and good race to Adam and Caleb.
It could have been. Jacob, what do you have for our second place finisher this evening?
Yeah, we saw you kind of tuck in behind Adam, making repeated attempts to try to make the outside lane work. Do you feel like if there was any opportunity to, as much as we hate to sometimes shoot the apron and try to get that pip at the line, would that have potentially been a move on offer that you were attempting to make come the end of the race there? Would it come to that, or were you just committed to trying to make the outside lane work as much as you could?
Yeah, that was definitely the goal. I was trying to see what could work on the bottom. It wasn't holding as well as I wanted it to, so I was kind of wanting to be in the second lane to get down there if possible. But yeah, I was going to try to snipe him at the line if that went to the green flag situation. Just kind of reason why I was just hanging on the low side for the most part at the end. The high side felt like I could build a run, but it didn't feel like there was anything I could do to make a pass on whoever was in that second lane. So I figured try to stay on the bottom and hope that lane opens up. If it doesn't, just shoot it and, hope for the best.
Yes, indeed. Well, you avoided the wrecks. You avoided the trouble. You came home second with a shot to win. Ty, thank you so much for joining us. Friends, family, sponsor, shout-outs. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Shout out to the Rogue Racing guys. I know Jesper got caught up today. Unfortunate for him. But Thanks for the setup work as always, as well as all the Alliance guys. Good racing with Rashad tonight and Chad and Seb. Shout out to Techtopia Systems, our sponsor there. P1 Broadcasting, thank you guys in the booth. Jacob and Mark, appreciate you guys as always. Our podium guys, Adam and Caleb, great racing with you guys. I think that's about it.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for stopping by. And Ty, keep going fast, having fun, buddy. We'll see you at the next one.
Thanks, guys. See ya. Have a great one.
Absolutely. That is Ty Keela. And for the man of the hour, we'll turn to tonight's winner, Adam Blocker. Adam, you've got Murph and you've got Jacob Collins in the P1 Broadcasting booth. They kind of emptied the magazine on you there at the end, but couldn't quite get it done. You doggedly held the bottom and made them drive around you. Did you think they were going to be able to snipe you at the line, or was it, or did you think you had enough to hold them off?
I thought just from what kind of the raw speed of the setup seemed like and drag and everything, I thought that I would be okay unless it was someone like Brophy, obviously my teammate, or maybe Marco if he had gotten up there. Although Marco did have older tires because he had pitted under green, so he was going to be scrubbing more. So I wasn't too worried because I felt like I would be able to win, or worst case, get second to Jason if he was able to get in position to be second. But yeah, just focus on holding the bottom and managing tools and everything to not kill either end of the car, because obviously if you get pushed, if you have to lift or get forced into that situation, like if the car next to you gets a nose ahead into one especially, and you have to lift or something, then your race is pretty much done because you fall back. So yeah.
Gotcha. Jacob?
Yeah, we kind of saw you and Jason work in the back of the field for the bulk of the opening portion of the race, and then finally decide to make your charge to the front. Kind of talk us through when do you feel like the opportune time is to kind of make that move towards the front of the pack there, going late into those stints.
For us, I was trying to just evaluate who the big competition was, and we felt like Marco was definitely one of them, and then like Jesper and those guys were doing the same plan as us. But basically, once Marco was pitting, we didn't want Marco to be able to catch the back of the pack, so we felt like we had to move forward and start swapping, and also we felt like we were the fastest cars in the pack. So once we had saved up a fuel advantage and could go long, we were just going to swap and build time, and that was working. And the first pit cycle, Jason jumped everybody, and I had a little bit of a off pit in and lost a little bit of time, but also watching Jesper spin in my mirrors was interesting there. But yeah, it's just and then we did the same thing the next run, and then before we had to pit, there was a caution that came out that while we were basically 1-2, so that basically kind of made the race for us. So
there you go, my man. Well, it's another race and another win for Adam Blocker, and with the trophy comes the mic. Friends, family, sponsors. Shout outs, Adam. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody at Power Slide for the setup, and Jason and I Jason for working with me, and y'all for supporting the series, and everybody for making it a pretty fun race. So, yep, we'll see you sometime soon.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for stopping in, Adam. Keep going fast, having fun, buddy. Not just here, but in real life too. You hear?
Yep. Yeah, I'll try.
Very good. That is Adam Blocker. He is tonight's winner. And Jacob, it was kind of what we expected. We don't say that very often, but it's we kind of thought with the conditions that this would be a very, very, very packy race, and it turned out to be so.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of just know what you're getting with these 2-mile tracks, especially with as much as we've seen them in all the various series across IndyCar competition on iRacing. Is you get them in the right track conditions, and you're going to get one race versus the other. And we've seen a couple different variants kind of play out over the years, and it's about as consistent gets.
It most certainly is. Speaking of consistent, there's also something very consistent about calling one of these races when he's here and seeing Adam Blocker pull into victory lane. The Dark Knight is is still at the top of his game, and he doesn't show up as often as he once did. But when Adam is here, that power slide car is very, very difficult to beat. Also pretty cool to see Ty Keela and Caleb Brashear round out the podium. Those are two names that you don't get to see in the Indy Open Series very often. Speaking of seeing the Indy Open Series, we will be back next week. Same time, same bad channel. We do want to thank all the drivers as well as all of the viewers. We had another big crowd tonight, Jacob. We also want to thank the people that really make this possible, and that would be the first responders, the military, the police, the firemen, the EMTs that drive the ambulance, Jacob, and the nurse that unloads you when you get there. From the bottom of our hearts, we do thank you. Lotus 79s from Motegi are up next.